Leadership framework. All right, let's do it. This framework, and really, this is the middle of this challenge because we actually just can't do anything about our kids' phone usage if we don't have the right relationship in some ways in place, the right ways of approaching, trying to steer that. We are like one of you said, it's kind of can be just too late. Once they've got the device, that's it. So this framework is really about how to relate to our teens. Like, what can we do to bring them in closer? What can we do so that we have a chance of being able to influence and steer and guide and support their phone usage? So that's what we're looking at. It's of course for everything. It's not just for phones. It's a typical framework that I'd be working on with parents, even if we were trying to get them to be more motivated at school or whatever it might be. All of the usual things: better morning routines, evening routines, better choices in life in general, more self-direction, more responsibility in the home, whatever it might be. This framework would work for that. But I've prepared this specifically just for the phone topic. So, love could also be, trust is another huge word for me. So it's really just that basic sense of loving, empowering, trusting, empathizing with and respecting our children. If we've got a sort of war going on and the phone's the bone of contention, then we have to kind of stop the war first before we're going to have any progress with the phones. So, removing shame and blame, um, uh, kind of criticism, judgment. If that resonates with you, I'd love to know in the chat, by the way, if that resonates with you as a place that you're at the moment where you're like, yes, there is a hot dynamic between me and my teen right now, or my husband and my teen right now. There is a lot of that shaming, blaming, kind of guilt tripping about the way they're about the way they're running their lives or whatever. Then that's crucial to just take that in first of all. Without these steps in place, I don't feel like we're going to get to many results with curbing their phone usage or guiding their phone usage. So that's the first part, love. Yeah, and education, we spoke about this. I mean, like it depends how it's handed over. So Rochelle spoke about science papers or all of the evidence that suggests that it's damaging or whatever it might be, but that is still the case. The social dilemma might be an insightful movie for some of our teens, and any way that we can educate them, things that we've heard about, if there's a way that we can. The home editors call it strewing, where you just leave something, you can leave out like a pamphlet or leave out a book or leave out an article. I mean, it's probably quite unlikely they're going to read something on phones, but it's any way that we can educate them around why and part of that can be more around discussion. So actually, we'll get into that in a little bit. With the education, I've got one video which I'm going to share with you. A guy called Dr. Haidt, I think he's called Haidt, Haidt. I don't know how to say Dr. Haidt. Sounds a bit funny. I don't know how to say his name, but it's a brilliant 1 hour video, which is the best thing I've seen on phone usage for parents. So that I'll share that resource with you either today or on Friday. So education, yeah, we can watch that. And I think if we can bring our kids into some way of genuinely being aware of like what's going on in their day-to-day lifestyle choices, then great. And to be speaking about that with them without there being some off-putting dynamic around it, some sort of lecturing, or if they're not open to hearing it, like my son who just like writhes around in his chair, that's not a time to start getting your message across. Just can it. I would say don't save your breath. And yeah, so education though is needed. We want to be able to share that with them. We can't just ignore that it's what we know and what we worry about for them. All right, the third part then is agreements. Yeah, agreements is a huge one around boundaries. Really, this is to do with boundaries and limits and injunctions. We've spoken about this. Jeannie, you mentioned how can we just let them loose with this stuff? They have to be curbed or regulated in some ways. And I agree, but it's how we do that. So, agreements is really the best word I can find for how we can start to help them in any way without disciplining, punishing, setting in boundaries that they're going to break, that's going to make all of our lives a misery. We need to really start being able to talk it through with them, to ask them, to find out like what could we all agree on? What do we think's a good lifestyle? Like what do they think about being on the phone till 2 in the morning or whatever, and then being like just completely incapacitated for school the next day? You know, in a way, we've got to get into asking them what they think and finding out what their insights are, opening up the floor to then make agreements, not like rules, you know, house rules that come from parents only. By the time they're in their teens, usually they're ready to abuse them in all kinds of different ways. So making agreements, finding a way to finding a route forward for yourselves by speaking with them about it, is a great way to go, so that there can be a greater sense of, yeah, equality in some ways. You know, like, yes, we're still the adults, there's still a lot that we can give them. I don't suggest that we just let them loose and just make their own way without any guidance at all. But I do want to see mostly parents and teens sitting around the table with a more even keel, like less just top down, we're the bosses, or you know, we know what's best, and these are the rules in this house kind of way. It's got to be loosening up more than that, at this age and stage, to empower much more self-rule and autonomy and their own insights. And you'll find that the agreements you make with them like that are so much more robust and effective than the ones you just dump on them. Yeah, so discussions, you know, like this might sound like the last thing your teen wants to do with you. So I'm not suggesting like protracted kind of sit down discussions if they're not really wanting to come to the table, but any way that you can open up these topics, you know, asking them how they're doing, raising some of that self-awareness, having like regular reviews in some ways of the agreements that you might have in place. How's that going? Is that better now? Just discussing with them what's the right way forward here. Like, what do we think is going to work best for us? You know, I don't want to be wrestling you for your phone anymore, but you know, I worry about you. Like, what do you think's best? At least discussing it with them. It doesn't mean you have to do what they say. So it's not to hand over all authority to them, but opening up a forum where you can all share your experience and insights, is, yeah, very empowering also for them to be feeling like they're also listened to and heard, and they have some say in the matter, and that it's open, it's up for discussion, even if they're not going to be able to have it all their way. Yeah, and then ease is really about our own emotions as parents, our own reactivity. Just taking responsibility for the fact that we can be so profoundly triggered, and then we can play out in a really toxic way. We've all done it. I vividly know how that feels. Also, you're mentioning some of you just wrestling matches. You know, my kids I haven't had any of those wrestling matches with them at this age yet. And I really hope not to. But I remember when they were really young, you know, that was one of the most pivotal moment for me as a parent, where I handled my kids in a very rough way, just to get them to bed. I think it was the first time that they just didn't do what I told them to do. They're 3 years old. They're like, no, I'm not going to bed. And I remember just picking them up and just handling them in a way that I just, oh, it chills me in a way to share it today. But it's a crucial moment for me in my parenting journey, where I took a lot of support to never parent like that again. I don't want to be aggressive with my kids, in any way, verbally or physically. So yeah, ease is about taking responsibility for our own reactivity, our own heightened emotions, bringing in more acceptance perhaps of like what's going on around us, like not feeling like like, as Rochelle shared, in a way you get to like a breaking point. All of you that have older kids, you know, you do get broken in by them, to the point where you're like, wow, what am I doing here? This is crazy. I'm trying to control this whole situation, make it perfect. It's never ending. It's never going to happen. So some of the ease might come in from just going, you know, everything is fine as it is, all is well, and having at least that disposition to then be able to be a bit more solution orientated about the problems you're facing, the challenges you're facing, so that we can navigate it not just be exploding, and more and more intensity and pressure in the household around boundaries that aren't standing up and concerns that we all have and whatever it might be. So yeah, ease, taking responsibility for our own emotions and our own reactivity is a key step. And then this one is a big one. I keep going backwards, but yeah, role modeling. So yeah, we spoke about this on the first day, but it's massive. Obviously, you know, us being on our phones all the time, whether it's work or whatever, there's not really any excuses. It's monkey see, monkey do as a parent. You know, our kids look at us and they are going to just copy everything that we do. They're not going to be listening to our verbal justifications about how to live. They're going to be watching what we actually do. And they're going to be studying us carefully, even in their teenage years when they look like they just couldn't care less, maybe what we're doing. They are watching, they're still paying attention. We're still such an important um, influence on them. So, you know, our role modeling makes a huge difference. So, our own technology usage, again, on Friday, we'll definitely wrap up with some practical suggestions of how we can also step up in our own ways of interacting with technology. If we want our kids to not be on their phones the whole time, it's not going to happen probably if we're on our phones the whole time. So role modeling with phones and technology is absolutely key, as it is in all parenting. And we need to stop maybe making excuses for ourselves in that way. Bring in some family guidelines that we can all adhere to, that everyone can join in on. I'll drop in a little bit here about what I'll share on Friday, but one family, you know, and our family's going to follow suit, have like windows where there's no devices, you know, I'm thinking of buying one of those boxes where you just all devices go into the box and you just have a couple of hours. They're using it because their kids doing GCSEs and A levels. They've got two children, one's doing GCSEs, one's doing A levels, and they just wanted to get a handle on it for like 5:30 till 7 p.m. on a weekday night when everyone knows they want to be getting their work done. And so they actually have a shoebox and they all just, but the parents do it as well. The reason for me mentioning it is that the parents are also ditching their phones. They're not like going off and having their phone time whilst the kids do their work. They're all coming off screens and being productive, doing what they want to do in that window, which I really loved hearing that. And yeah, I'm definitely taking that for our kids when they have their own devices. Self-care we've spoken about. That's a spontaneously came up a lot earlier on. So there's not much more to say about that, but just to repeat it, yeah, not beating ourselves up. There's an element here as well, which again, I'll go into more on Friday, around grief. One parent really showed me that actually the major bone of contention she had with the phones was that she felt jealous. She actually felt like, wow, her daughter's like been stolen by this. She's given her a phone and she's gone off with the phone, no longer spending time with mum, no longer interested in mum. And that's so provocative for a parent. So, you know, we are in a kind of grieving phase with a parent as a parent of a teen, because they're beginning to like go off, and that we can't make excuses around that. Sometimes we also have to like take care of ourselves in that it's actually not their fault. It's more just that we miss them, you know, but so they're off with their friends, they're on their phone a lot. But you know, that part of that's just how it's going to be. They're becoming independent. The relationships change. They're not mummy's or daddy's little girl or boy anymore. They're growing up in that way. So it's not to give up. It's just to acknowledge that there can be a sense of kind of jealousy or grief around phones as well. Like, wow, I've lost my daughter. And sometimes that's an alarming concern and a problem. But sometimes it's just, this is how it is. It's independence, greater and greater independence from now on. So we need to adapt to that. Yeah, and look after ourselves in that way too. Yeah, humility. Okay, so humility is part of yeah, just sharing our own experience as well, not hiding away the fact that we also do struggle. One of you said this also as like something that I think doesn't work, but that's fine. It can work, it cannot work, but pretending that we don't also struggle with our devices and not sharing with our kids about our own struggles, I think can be very counterproductive. So it can be nice to just like with the shoebox example, to go like all of us want to be more productive than just scrolling from 5:30 to 7 p.m. So we're all going to put our phones in this flipping box, because we're all a bit out of control with it. So that's what the humility is to do with, really, being a bit more open and vulnerable about our own, yeah, how technology has broadsided all of our lives in some ways. Yeah, influence. Okay, so influence is also sometimes, like, I call it delegation. Like, I'm that. I mean, and like, I'm that influence. I know with the teens and the families that I work with. I was just speaking with a head teacher this morning. I'm going to speak in their school in a month's time. And yeah, he was saying how it's so useful to have outside speakers come in because I'm not a teacher and because I'm not one of their parents. So, that's really powerful to have influences around lifestyle choices that are actually going to make an impact. So a coach can do that, their own peer group. There might be role models in their peer groups that can also do that. Older siblings can share some of their insights around how to manage being with a phone in a more balanced way. Yeah, I'm just dropping that out there. The summer course also, that could be a profound influence for your teen. I'm brainstorming a week long. It'll be online, but it'll be like a teenage. Yeah, in a way, it's just going to be another coaching course, but it'll be like a detox. The phone will definitely be put away for that week. We'll think about how we could do that. You'll be part of it. The parents will also be part of this program, just taking the phone, and the teens are going to have to be up for it. So I'll interview the teens to know, like, who wants to do this, who wants to experiment with a week where we really reprioritize from just scrolling away and re-engage with the world, set ourselves some things that we want to do instead, and see if we can survive a week without our phones. That's basically the premise. So yeah, I'm excited to yes, put that out there, and that this group obviously feeds right into that, but I'll be putting that out there generally for all the parents in my network to see which teens might want to join that summer camp. It'd be a week long program. So yeah, that's another part of having them just have a good influence around their lifestyle choices other than you. So it's delegating to other trusted adults, people like me, but anyone else you can also find who can really reach them and ask them what they want for themselves, which is that's the summary of my work, is that I'm only ever asking what they want, and actioning that, basically helping them enact that. Great. So bringing in some other influence, sometimes delegating, sometimes we're not the person as the parents to win this battle or to steer them around in that kind of way. So yeah, finding some other influence can be really helpful. And then provision, yeah, we spoke about this, in a way, we've got to step up for this challenge of, like, what's so great about the offline world? We've got to at least offer them some other alternatives, see what we can help them find for themselves and see what we can provide. Um, yeah, so lots of you mentioned some great alternatives in the messenger thread. I recommend going back to that as well if you want to get some ideas. But even Uno, like someone's celebrating their birthday, taking along the Uno deck. I mean, it's funny and ridiculous, but yeah, they had a great night, so that's brilliant. But socializing and the diversity of your socializing, you were mentioning, Sibylla, that's brilliant. Gina, you were mentioning cuddles and decision making and walks and the shows and music and museums, all of this amazing art galleries, travel, swimming. I wrote it all down, one-to-one time. That's all great. We have to really be breathing into that. Otherwise, there is kind of nothing but the device for a teen that just doesn't know what else to do. For a long time, I felt like um, it's just a lack of experience for teenagers to be able to self-lead. It's a lot to ask them to self-lead and self-direct when we've given them a phone. So it's a real challenge for them. So yeah, the more we can help them in that way to diversify their activities and have time offline as well as online, the better.